Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So I had to hop on because we got some information about Season 4 for Diablo 4 that's coming soon. It's not really all of it. It doesn't seem like it, but it's some of it. And we also have a date for apparently when this Season 4, the Loot Reborn, begins, which is May 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's go over the information that they gave us. There's quite a bit here. There's some rehashed older information, and it does look like there's some new information here as well. So we're gonna dive in. We're gonna see what we can find out. So galvanize your legend in Season 4, The Loot Reborn. Kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy Reborn. They did that was the whole rebranding from Final Fantasy 14 when it first came out and it failed. And then they had to, then they had to like redo the entire game, and it was Final Fantasy 14, The Realm Reborn. Remember? Yes, for those of you who remember. The forges burn with renewed vigor, stoked by braziers to hone the steel of Sanctuary's finest across the land. Hell's expanded legions gather and multiply, marshaling their strength to ambush wanderers to fall prey to their HellTide. From our first public test realm in Diablo 4 Season 4 Loot Reborn begins on May 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard. Use the itemization overhaul on new systems, tempering, and masterworking to change a noteworthy blade into a force to be feared. Across all the world tiers, HellTide is reborn. Slay monstrosities to fill your threat meter, marking you as prey for Hellborn. Prepare to fight side by side with the Iron Wolves, a seasoned mercenary company of brethren aiming to quell the demons. For those of you who are unaware, the Iron Wolves are the mercenaries from Diablo 2 that were present in the docks of Act 3. I'm assuming that this might be a lead up actually to go into the expansion because according to the expansion details, we're going back to Act 3, the docks of Act 3 and everything, which is where the Iron Wolves come from what I understand. So supposedly, maybe this is a lead up toward the new expansion, basically kind of building up the Iron Wolves for whatever is going to happen back in Act 3 with all the swampliness. So first we have itemization, reforged, masterworking, tempering, and more. Seasons within Diablo 4 bear their mark on Sanctuary and the seasonal realm, unearthing new quests and fresh mechanics to explore and master. Season 4 Loot Reborn takes on a new theme, overhauling many core game systems to refresh how items are earned, how they function, and how they improve as you level through world tiers during the season. Unlike the previous seasonal themes that affect only the seasonal realm, with Season 4 Loot Reborn, these itemization changes persist beyond the seasonal realm and affect the eternal realm as well. Read on to learn how itemizations will change the way you loot and reap your way across Diablo 4. All updates to our new items, classes, and skills will be available in our Season 4 patch notes, which will be available following the developer live stream on May the 2nd. So tune in, was it 2 days from now? So we got, Tuesday? Yeah, so there's no 31st. So it's going to be on Thursday is going to be the developer update live stream. So if you guys want to check out that, we're going to see what they've got to say about, supposedly this was supposed to be mainly about what they learned from PTR and what they're changing as a result, and then also, of course, telling us about the seasonal theme. General item updates. One of our several goals for the itemization changes is to make it easier to understand which items are upgrades when they drop. We reduced the number of affixes on items down to 3 on legendary items and 2 on rare items. Boo. They're still sticking with the 2 on rare items. Boo, boo, boo. And make these affixes more effective instead of seeing an affix that relies on conditional values. The 10% damage to non-injured elites, you'll see affixes such as base increases to your movement speed, max life, or single ranks to a core skill. Dropped items are now simpler to evaluate, and we've moved their complexity and customization to our new crafting systems, tempering, masterworking, which we will describe in detail below. We've also increased the overall values of these affixes so they should feel more powerful. The reason why I said boo to this is because two affixes on rare items basically makes rare items useless. So for those of you who haven't played around with the PTR and you've been under a rock for a while, there's basically no purpose to rare items anymore in the game. They have taken the third affix and removed it from rare items. The rare items also don't seem to drop with greater affixes. So basically, rare items have been relegated to trash that you pick up to bring back to town to either sell or destroy. And I was really hoping that they would make a change to that because I don't, I never like items in a game to exist for the sole purposes of taking them back to town to sell for money. I mean, in Diablo 2, white items are valuable, blue items are valuable, rare items are valuable, set items are valuable, unique items are valuable. Like there's literally no classification of item in Diablo 2 that doesn't have some kind of value. And like basically the magic items and the white items are already trash in Diablo 4, and now the rare items are also trash. So the only items in the game at the moment that are going to be of any value whatsoever are unique items and legendary items, and that's it. So two tiers, and you can pretty much just throw away all the rest. This is a screenshot of something like the greater affixes. So you see like the little star here on the damage. So that's basically a greater affix right there. And the greater affixes can't be re-rolled. By making items more individually impactful, we've significantly decreased the number of items that drop when slaying monsters. The goal here is to spend more time obliterating and less time sorting through the many items that drop. The result is that fewer items will drop overall, but those items will be more likely to be valuable. To compensate and stay on par with the norm, materials gained from salvaging and crafting have been adjusted to match this change. Also, Forgotten Souls can now be earned from Whisper bounties and are a rare drop from all elites. The gold cost to reroll items when chaining now has a maximum, and we've cut down on the materials needed to perform all activities when at the blacksmith. Additionally, which world tier you play in will directly affect the rarity of the items you earn. Sacred items or higher only drop in World Tier 3, and ancestral items will appear in World Tier 4. Similarly, legendary items dropped from enemies over level 95 will always have a value of 925 item power. However, keep an eye out for uniques. Some have a chance to appear starting in World Tier 1 and 2. All uniques have a chance to drop starting in World Tier 3. And Uber uniques can start appearing as once you're killing monsters that are level 55 at max item power. A little bit of a typo there. Level 55 at max. So as long as you're level 55 or higher, you can start to see Uber uniques falling, and they will drop at their maximum item power, which we've already confirmed in previous patches. Codex of Power update. Extracting aspects from legendary items now stores them in your Codex of Power to be used indefinitely, making instead of taking up space in your inventory, the Codex of Power is a library that stores your most powerful extracted version of that aspect, which can be used many times as you want. Now, we tested this out during the PTR, and it was absolutely amazing. Basically, if you find like a perfect version and you can extract it, you now have access to that perfect version forever. And every single time you extract items, or you basically just destroy items. You don't even extract anymore. Once you destroy the item, it automatically goes into your codex, and you get access to that basically across all your characters. So, like in general, you're going to be hunting for the perfect versions, obviously, but for the most part, you're going to be set once you find that perfect version and you extract it, which is pretty nice. The Codex of Power displays all available aspects, so you can spend more time seeking the highest aspect rolls. Once the aspect with the maximum potential value is extracted, a specific border indicates that the aspect has been completed. Aspects can now be favored within the Codex of Power, and a tooltip will denote whether or not you already have the aspect equipped when searching within the Codex. Note that the seasonal realm, when the season ends, your Codex of Power will reset and retain those learned affixes from the Eternal Realm. If you already have the same aspect learned in the Eternal Realm, the Codex of Power will keep the higher of the two. Tempering, sharpen your steel and make it sing. As you find and learn tempering manuals, blacksmiths across Sanctuary will be able to use these manuals of craftsmanship to shape the qualities of your equipment. Tempering allows you to add potent affixes to your item. Crafting manuals can be found as a regular item throughout the game. Once learned, they can be used as many times as desired, like the Codex of Power changes. Each crafting manual contains a small number of affixes and typically correspond to 6 different categories: weapons, offensive, defensive, mobility, utility, and resource. Simply head to the blacksmith to temper. Head to the blacksmith to temper your item and add one of the available affixes, greatly reducing the time it takes to ensure your weapon has the affix you desire. Note that ancestral items can have 2 tempered affixes from different categories. I had some trouble actually locating the tempering manuals. That was That was one of the problems that I had. I couldn't even find the dang things. Like, I played for quite some time on the PTR, and I felt like I had basically no manuals for any classes, except for the ones that I had potentially already found or were basically given to me, which was kind of crazy. So it was difficult to say the least to get the manuals, and when you're tempering an item that basically only has like what is it, like 5 or 6 tempers to it, so you can only temper it a certain number of times. Although sometimes when you temper it, it doesn't take any of the tempering durability away. But basically, you can only temper it a certain number of times. And like, if you don't have access to all the manuals, of course your item's probably not going to be at its best, which is a pretty big issue. I don't really know where all the tempering manuals come from, and I felt like a lot of the times I was just finding the same tempering manual repeatedly. So it honestly felt a lot of the times like I was not able to fully customize my items. Let's move on. So remember, the tempering durability indicates how many times you can temper an item. Even the most honed blades can lose their edge. The manuals you learn on the seasonal realm last until the end of the season, and manuals learned on the eternal realm will be known permanently. Masterworking, refine your weapon to untold prowess. So this is basically where you upgrade your items a total of 12 times, and you actually get some pretty decent upgrades out of this. Using the rarest materials found within the deepest mines and caverns, improve your weapon to the absolute pinnacle of their potential. Masterworking is an endgame crafting system using materials earned from the pit of artificers to upgrade your weapons. Masterworking improves overall strength of all affixes on your weapon, and at every 4th tier, massively upgrades one of your equipped affixes. The affixes that receives the bonuses will return blue, and if the same affix is improved again, it will turn yellow. In rare cases, it will turn orange if it is improved a 3rd time. So basically, you have this like one every tier. You get a 25% random upgrade to an item, and the 25% random upgrade to an item applies to one specific affix. And it can actually apply to the same affix multiple times, which is kind of crazy. On top of that, you can also have a greater affix, and it can apply to a greater affix. So if you have a greater affix, which is already 1.5 times normal value, and then you apply the Masterworking 25% bonus to it 3 times, which is a 75% bonus total, you can have a affix which is going to give you an absolutely insane value. And is going to be something that people are going to be looking for. Like if you have, let me give an example. So let's say you're on a druid and you're utilizing the Thunderstruck code, well, not Codex entry. What is it? Paragon board, legendary, right? And it has a multiplier which is applied through close damage, right? And you're a melee fighter, so you want close damage. That's what you're building. Maybe you're not going to use the distance so much, but you get it where you can, right? But you have a greater affix roll on your weapon of close damage. Then you upgrade it 3 times, and you get 25% bonus each time for a total of 75% bonus. So you get the 1.5 times and the 75% times to your close multiplier, which is going to give you a huge multiplier bonus on your Thunderstruck. So using this the correct way could potentially lead to an item that makes you far more powerful than you normally are. So greater affixes, this is what we were just talking about. So appearing only on ancestral, legendary, and unique items, which by the way, I've seen a unique item with 4 greater affixes. All 4 of the affixes rolled greater. Now the main issue with greater affixes is they can't be re-rolled, and you might not necessarily actually want any of the greater affixes that rolled on the item. So it is much more difficult to get yourself like a 4 greater affix item that actually has useful greater affixes. But when it does happen, I mean, you're going to have a godlike item at that point, because you're going to have an item that has 4 greater affix rolls. You're going to upgrade it. It's going to get even more bonus on it as well. And it's going to be pretty darn powerful. Greater affixes are 1.5 times more powerful version of normal affixes, and items with greater affixes drop with a distinct audio cue. I think they need a distinct visual cue as well, but they don't have that yet. alerting you to their presence, and have a unique icon in the world within your inventory. Each affix on an item has a chance to be a greater affix in the world tier 3 and 4. You cannot enchant an affix into a greater affix. Their awesome power may only be discovered. Gems. Gems are simpler and more streamlined and more effective across your character's journey. We got to look at some of the gems that they changed. Some of the changes were good. Some of the changes were bad. Like they changed one of the defensive ones. So the sapphires that used to give you a damage reduction while you were fortified, they basically just gutted that one entirely. So you are not going to be able to enhance the defense of your character that way. Whereas some of the other ones were changed for the better. I'm not entirely sure about the changes because I feel like some of them, like I said, were good, some of them were bad. You'll have to get in and see some of them yourself. They also added some stats as well. They said normal gems are available at level 51, flawless at 71, and royal at 91. That's a pretty big change. Because the royals were available at what, 70 before? The flawless were available at like 60 or 50, and then like yeah, that's a pretty big change. So we're not going to have access to royal gems until level 91. So they changed diamonds, have had their all resistances values increased. Topazes now provide increased intelligence. Sapphires provide increased willpower. See, they changed that one from the fortify damage reduction. Amethyst increases your strength, and emeralds now provide a bonus to dexterity. So they basically changed a bunch of the gems to give you like your base stat, which is, I mean, it's okay, I guess. Some people might do that to stack damage, but my hunch, honestly, is that the way that they increased the difficulty of the game, and we're back to getting one-shot a lot now because they reduced the damage reduction, I don't see a lot of people actually using these, because using these means foregoing things like rubies, or something that could make you tankier, and basically is going to mean that you're obviously going to die more often. And I think a lot of people are going to avoid using these specifically because it's going to mean their death. HellTide Reborn. The legions of the burning hells are regrouped to coordinate the most formidable display of force in the HellTide Reborn. Inspired by vampiric blood harvest and the season of blood, your ferocity in combat draws the attention of increasingly dangerous foes. Only the strongest and most well prepared can survive this potent onslaught. Unless otherwise noted, these HellTide changes affect both eternal and seasonal realms and persist beyond the end of Season 4, Loot Reborn. Threat levels and becoming hell-marked. As you cleave your way through HellTide, you will now generate threat. The threat is earned based on the difficulty of the monsters you slay and how often you're opening tortured gifts within HellTide. There are 3 threat levels in total, with each level increasing the danger and frequency of ambushes, and once you hit level 3, you will become hell-marked. When you've become hell-marked, you'll be besieged by a frenzy of densely packed monsters, and if you make it out alive, a Hellborn will come for you, one of Sanctuary's most formidable fallen warriors. Now an immensely powerful agent of Hell, the Hellborn can embody one of the classes in Diablo 4. Your threat level resets once the Hellborn ambush has been activated, or if you succumb to the overwhelming forces of Hell and perish. Unholy Blasphemy, the Accursed Ritual. This is basically a copy of the ritual from the vampire event during Season 2. There was a really cool event like in the middle of the thing where you could put in blood, and you had to put 3 people could put in blood, or you could put them all in yourself if you were rich with blood. But basically, it's the same thing in this one. They basically added an event where everybody can input the specific resource to trigger the event. So at a scene of shocking gore, the accursed ritual is the ultimate testament to the disturbing lengths that these manic cultists will go to appease their dark desires. It is here where you can begin the accursed ritual. Baneful hearts can be earned by opening tortured gifts throughout the HellTide and by defeating Hellborn enemies. Deposit 3 baneful hearts to begin the ritual, which will commence with a swarm of demonic enemies. This ambush will end with the arrival of the formidable Blood Maiden, an immensely powerful demon who offers great reward upon her death. Now, we fought her a couple times during the PTR, and I will tell you that even with a very well set up character, extremely defensive, set up for like freaking tier 200 pits and all sorts of other crazy stuff, she was still able to kill me. and several other people who thought they were invincible. So it is kind of interesting to see that they have in the HellTide a monster that is actually able to provide at least some kind of challenge to players who are immensely overgeared. Let's put it that way. Contributing any baneful hearts to initiate the Dark Ritual will grant you increased rewards as a contribution bonus, but sacrificing more baneful hearts will yield you further individual rewards. HellTide's in World Tier 1 and 2. To get your feet warmed up to the awesome threat of the HellTide earlier in your character's journey, HellTide is now available in World Tier 1 and 2, and the overall monster density will be suited relative to those world tiers, and no roaming bosses or lethal meteors will be present. Additional hellish changes. For the wanderer that wants to push the limits of HellTide, an exceptionally valuable new elixir called the Profane Mind Cage is available to up the ante. Consuming a profaned mind cage increases the level of HellTide monsters by 10 and boosts the cinder drop rates. These are guaranteed to drop after killing Hellborn, and you will see diminishing returns on boosted monster levels closer to level cap. Keep progressing in the world tiers to retain the same benefit from this potent elixir. The Profane Mind Cage will only last until the end of Season 4 Loot Reborn. I like that, increasing the level of the monsters in HellTide. Fresh demonic events have been added to the HellTide, including new encounters with the fabled Iron Wolves. Stay vigilant for these encounters of demonic treachery. As a recent change since our public test realm for Season 4 Loot Reborn, Doomsayers no longer drop chests of doomsaying. Instead, they now drop equivalent rewards that a chest of doomsaying would have granted on death, entirely removing the cinder cost it previously had. Your greatest challenge, the Pit of Artificers. That's basically the greater rifts from Diablo 3. These are rumors that there are strange varieties of ore deep within the network of dungeons crisscrossing the north of Sanctuary, perfect for crafting exceptionally made armor using secret heraldic techniques. However, the horrors that lay in wait for intrepid wanderers seeking to unearth these riches are unspeakably terrible. Upon entering World Tier 4, you'll receive the priority quest to complete a Tier 46 Nightmare Dungeon, and upon completing the Tier 46 Nightmare Dungeon, you'll be able to collect rune shards. By playing through different endgame activities, they'll appear when you encounter HellTide chests, world bosses, Legion events, Nightmare Dungeons, and Whisper bounties. Collecting rune shards to activate the Obelisk of Saragar, allowing you to descend into the beckoning depths of the pit. Your task is to slay enough monsters before your 10-minute time limit runs out to summon the final boss, and each player death removes time from the clock. The first death is 30 seconds, the second is 60, and then the third and subsequent deaths will remove 90 seconds from the clock. After enough monsters are slain, a portal materializes, transporting you to the boss's arena. Slaying boss before the timer expires to earn the coveted Masterworking materials and the next brutal tier of the pit. If you can manage to kill the boss within the time left on the clock, the benefit increases. With 4 to 6 minutes to spare, you skip a level and unlock the additional tier of the pit. Killing the boss with 6 or more minutes to spare grants you 2 additional tier unlocks, and the pit has 200 levels of total difficulty to try and conquer if you dare to face the challenge. The pit can be entered in groups of up to 4 players, with the player who spends the rune shards to open the pit earning the lion's share of the materials. Only the player who opened the pit has the chance to receive tantalizing Stygian stones used for summoning Tormented Echoes. The level 200 variants of the summonable bosses found in Diablo 4, and the further you descend into the levels of the pit, the more frequent these Stygian stones will appear. And Dariel joins the fray and Tormented Echoes. The Maiden of Anguish has returned in all her tormented glory, and she joins the boss ladder at the same tier as her brother Duriel, with the same uber-unique drop rate with a mix of shadow, fire, and lightning damage, and her iconic poison attack. And Dariel stands ready to face all who dare fathom to bring her about her demise. Found east of Tessarek in Hanged Man's Hall, you'll need summoning materials from both Lord Zir and Beast in the Ice to fight Andariel. Tormented Echoes. All summonable bosses are now available at level 200 as Tormented Echoes. Now, we fought a couple of these in the PTR. We did Grigore, we tried Varshan, but he was kind of bugged. We also did Beast in the Ice, which for some reason was 100 levels lower than the other bosses, or 50 levels lower. Like the tormented bosses are 200 and Beast in the Ice was only 150, which was a little strange. He was actually surprisingly easy to beat by comparison to the other ones. They were actually kind of fun to fight, and my only real complaint about them was they didn't really have very good rewards for beating them. Like, it just kind of felt like it was a big challenge for basically no reward. Similar to the way that Lilith is a really big challenge for no reward. Summonable with their summoned material alongside the Stygian Stones, which can be found deep within the pit. These bosses cost more to summon, but drop far more rewards, which I don't really agree here. That's exactly what I said. They cost 5 times the normal summoning materials. So whatever summoning material they normally cost, they cost 5 times, right? So basically it's just like Duriel costs 2 and 2, right? So it's going to be 5 times that, which is 10. One of them only costs 1, so like Varshan only costs 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So it's going to be 5, 5, 5, 5. Grigore is 5 materials, so you're going to be 5 times 5, which is 25. So you're going to need 25 materials to summon Tormented version of Varshan. I hope they worked on the more rewards part, because the more rewards part kind of felt weak. They don't really drop good summoning materials either, which is kind of silly. So to give you an example, during PTR, we were testing them out, and like normally when you kill Grigore, he'll drop you like one, what is it, the Shard of Agony, right? So 1 Shard of Agony, which you can use to summon Duriel. Well, if you do the Tormented version, which of course requires 5 times the materials, you still only got 1 Shard of Agony, which was a little silly considering that you spent 5 times the material to fight him, and he was much, much more difficult, right? So you would expect that he would drop you, I don't know, maybe 5 Shards of Agony, since you spent 5 times the materials to spawn him. But that's not the case. I think there was a lot of complaint about the rewards for the Tormented Echo bosses during the PTR, so hopefully they're going to address that. And I'm assuming, because they said that the May 2nd developer chat is going to be going over a lot of the stuff that they've fixed from PTR, so hopefully they'll talk about that. To summon a Tormented Echo, simply go to their typical summon location, select the Tormented Echo variant. Note that to summon the beast in the ice, you'll need to craft a different Nightmare Sigil. It's the Tormented Sigil. All items dropped from the Tormented Echoes will be an item level 925, and defeating your first Tormented Echo drops 1 Resplendent Spark as a first-time reward, account bound. I kind of took issue with this, too, because while I thought that getting a Resplendent Spark from these guys was pretty neat, they only give you 1. And I don't just mean 1 for each Tormented, like, monster that you fight, because there's, and as of right now, we've got what, like Beast in the Ice, Grigore, we've got Duriel and Dariel, Zir, and am I missing one? I don't know which one I'm missing. But there's at least 5 or 6 bosses that can be spawned in Tormented mode. So you would think you would get like 5 or 6 Resplendent Sparks for defeating all of the Tormented versions of all of the bosses. But you don't get 5 or 6, you just get 1 for all of them. So when you defeat any of the Tormented bosses, you get 1 Resplendent Spark. And then when you defeat another Tormented boss, you get nothing, because you already got your Tormented Spark, and you greedy bastard, you don't deserve more. Which I thought was it's a little greedy, especially considering you need 4 Resplendent Sparks just to even make an Uber Unique. So in the grand scheme of things, if you don't end up getting 3 additional Uber Uniques that you want to destroy, the Resplendent Spark that they're giving you is, well, useless, because it doesn't do anything unless you have enough Resplendent Sparks to actually create a Uber Unique. And I thought that would have been a very interesting way to basically give people access to at least 1 Uber Unique item, but it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like they're going to restrict it to just simply 1 Resplendent Spark, which is, in the grand scheme of things, really is not going to help hardly anybody at all. Fight with the Iron Wolves. So they were talking about the Iron Wolves several times throughout this. Seek out the battle-hardened and stalwart Sode of the Anvil, a stoic commander of the Iron Wolves. The Iron Wolves are a band of noble mercenaries in the south seeking to protect the common people of Sanctuary and hold themselves to a higher code of honor than other mercenary companies. of similar metal. Mysteriously, members of their ranks have been dying under suspicious circumstances. Seek out the source of this slaughter to earn the Iron Wolf's favor. Sounds like a reputation system. Meet Sode in Kyrgyzstan to start your journey to uncover this deadly plot. Working with the Iron Wolves will earn you several tempering manuals, which are key to unlocking the potential of your items in Season 4 Loot Reborn. And as we talked about earlier when I was talking about the tempering system, if you don't have access to these tempering manuals, you're not going to be making the best items that you can make. So it sounds to me like if they have access to a large number of the tempering manuals, then you probably want to do this quest line first to get access to those tempering manuals so that when you're making your endgame items, you actually have access to all the things that you can possibly put on your gear. Any Iron Wolf's events that occur in HellTide will persist past the end of Season 4 Loot Reborn. It's interesting. Earn rewards with the Season Journey and Battle Pass. Of course, we're going to have a Battle Pass. Let's see here. You'll earn rewards befitting the Sanctuary's Defender, such as a new legendary aspect, 3 Skulls of Amnesia, which provide a few free skill tree. Paragon resets. The journey also provides favor, the resource to climb through the Battle Pass tiers. Also earnable simply by playing aspects of the game. Season 4 Loot Reborn Battle Pass begins on May 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard and hosts 90 tier rewards, 28 free tiers, and 62 premium tiers. Oh, look, there's a Honorary Wolf. Increase your... That looks like a reputation symbol. Wolf's honor rank to 6 by battling in evil HellTide zones. Trying to look at some of these little things they got down here. My horse, some emotes. They got the same cinders. Was it like a halberd over there? Smoldering Ashes earned from free tiers can be spent on season blessings. There are new blessings in Season 4 Loot Reborn. Urn of Nightmares boosts Paragon Glyph XP. Urn in Nightmare Dungeon, so that's kind of nice. Urn of Iron boosts your reputation with the Iron Wolves from HellTide activities. Urn of Burning Obols boosts the amount of obols you could find in HellTide chests. That one sounds like it's going to be really nice. I always get tired of leveling up my my Glyph EXP, not going to lie. Looks like this is one of the new outfits that you can purchase from the shop. Kind of reminds me of similarly to the samurai outfit they had from last season. This one seems interesting. Like big giant demon horns on it. The sword almost looks ethereal. We're dialing up the heat in the shop with new equipment and accessories. Armor and accessories mount armor bundles that will have you slaying in style. Starting May 14th, pay Tijala Veget to browse her wares. She'll update her stock throughout Season 4 Loot Reborn. One such rarefied find from the far reaches of Sanctuary is the Demon's Heart bundle for the Barbarian, which contains the Demon Heart armor set and 2 Demon Heart weapon and cosmetics. Looks like they got some community guides for Diablo 4 Season 4. And we still, of course, have the developer update live stream coming. Honestly, there's a lot of questions that I still have. I mean, like, are we going to be able to actually have the Iron Wolves as like a mercenary? Because that sounds kind of cool. I mean, there's a lot of small things in here that they didn't really cover from like PTR. There was a lot of like issues with it that weren't really covered. Like the tempering system, it seemed to be really difficult to find the manuals. There was like nothing wrong with the Codex, by the way. The Masterworking system's like extremely long, like overly silly animation that you would have to watch every single time was kind of weird. Also, the failure rate on the Masterworking and the tempering seemed to be obscenely high, which was something that needed to be addressed. HellTides were honestly really good in the PTR, and there was really not a lot of complaints about the HellTide changes. I think everybody's going to enjoy the HellTide changes. They basically just took a lot of the stuff that was popular from the Vampire event from Season 2, and they added it into the HellTides, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, I'm not really quite sure making the World Tier 1 and 2 HellTide's baby tier, like by removing the boss spawns and the meteors. I mean, don't get me wrong, the meteors can sometimes kill you, but the meteors come with the bosses, and the bosses represent, additional loot, which is kind of nice. I don't know. This seems really interesting. The profane mind cage. I'm actually really kind of excited about that, making the hell tides more difficult because there's always going to come a point where your characters are just going to be, ridiculously high level and ridiculously well equipped and just the best characters that they could possibly be, running like best at slot equipment, and so giving you the ability to increase the Helltide levels or the monster levels sounds really good. I think a lot of people are going to be using these. Um, the pit, the main one of some of the main issues I had with the pit was that like number one, the bosses at the end were just completely randomized in terms of like the chaos that they offered. They basically what they did was they put bosses in the end arena, and then in the end arena they had a bunch of random like effects that were just constantly happening that were completely separate from the boss itself. And as you got into the higher tiers and literally things were just one-shotting you on a regular basis, these random things that were happening during the boss fight at the end of the dungeon would oftentimes just one-shot you. And there was little you could do to stop those random things from happening in the end of the dungeon. I wasn't really particularly fond of them. On top of this, another issue with the pit is that they don't give, there's no glyph EXP in the pit. So to upgrade your items, you have to run the pit. Like you basically, they have taken away the old upgrade system entirely, which means that you're going to have to run the pit to upgrade your equipment, but at the same time, you're going to have to run nightmare dungeons to get glyph EXP because the pit doesn't give glyph EXP and nightmare dungeons do. Which means that you're going to be torn between being able to upgrade your equipment and being able to upgrade your glyphs so that you can get everything set up. And it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt, in my opinion, separating everything out because you're going to have to run Helltides. Helltides don't give glyph EXP for all your materials. You're going to have to run the pit to get your materials to upgrade your items. But then you're also going to have to run Nightmare Dungeons to get your glyphs. And if they didn't fix the problem with the veiled crystals, there's going to be a whole veiled crystal shortage as well. So hopefully they've adjusted that. Basically, when we were playing around with all of this, the pit doesn't basically give any loot. Like, you only get loot at the end of it, and you don't get veiled crystals when you play the pit either. So, very quickly, we were running out of veiled crystals really, really fast. Like, to the point where we were running dungeons and helltides and everything else to try and get veiled crystals, but it was never enough. Like, I was just constantly, never-endingly out of veiled crystals, and it got to the point where I couldn't upgrade anything. I couldn't imbue any items with aspects. I couldn't, I couldn't temper or masterwork anything. Like it was pretty bad. Um, so while I originally thought it was kind of neat that the pit didn't drop any items or any like materials or anything, I kind of don't like it anymore because then I realized that, well, while I was grinding the pit and upgrading all my items, I was just burning through every single resource I had to the point where eventually I would have to just stop running the pit entirely and just go grind out materials so that I could continue to upgrade my equipment. Hopefully they've kind of balanced this out a little bit and made it a little less ridiculous. It would be really nice if the pit just simply dropped some failed crystals, because they are in high demand, very very high demand. And Dariel joins the fray. Honestly, having more bosses to fight is never a bad thing. So having Andariel as another option over Duriel for Uber Unique drops is certainly nice. We got to fight her once during PTR, and her mechanics do seem pretty interesting. But due to the extreme power up that all of the new equipment gave us, it was a trivial at best fight, like the basically the 100 version, because she just like we just walked right over her. I mean, it was like a couple hits. We had to basically take off of our weapons to like not kill her almost instantaneously. So I mean, hopefully there's some adjustments in like how powerful players are, or maybe they adjust how strong she is. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, people are one-shot Anduriel, and they're probably going to one-shot Andariel too. But there is obviously the 200 version of Andariel as well, so that'll be fun to play with. We were unable to play around with the 200 version of Andariel, though, during PTR because her material they were bugged coming from Beast in the Ice. So Beast in the Ice was not dropping her material like he was supposed to. And then we found out that we could still get the material from the Tormented version of Beast in the Ice, but because of the extreme requirements for like the materials for him, it was really difficult to fight him multiple times or enough to get like a Tormented version of Andariel running. We like barely got one regular Andariel from the materials. So I wasn't able to really test out the Tormented version of Andy. The Iron Wolves coming back sounds really neat. If you didn't know, they were already in the game. There is an Iron Wolves encampment in Diablo 4. It's part of like a small quest line. There's not really a whole lot to do there, but I guess now there's going to be a whole lot more to do there. In fact, usually when you go to one of the HellTides, this is usually the place you teleport to, is the Iron Wolves encampment. It sounds like our Season 4 quest line is going to be based around the Iron Wolves. So it's not just a new quest line that's going to be added. I think this is specifically the Season 4 quest line for, like in Season 2 when we went and talked to the vampire lady, or Season 3 when you went and talked to the, the guy about the Senjal or whatever. Like it's basically this is going to be our season quest line. And it looks like we're also going to have specific events which are going to be occurring in HellTide for the Iron Wolves, and then also some sort of reputation system and things that we can purchase from the Iron Wolves. I don't know if we're actually going to have like an Iron Wolf mercenary that's going to be following us around, but I don't know. I mean, some of this stuff for the in the shop kind of looks neat. Last season they had the samurai outfit, and this demon one kind of looks kind of neat too. Not gonna lie. I guess we'll have to see on that. I mean, honestly, a lot of this was just rehashed information from the PTR. I was really hoping that they would have some of the learnings, things that they've changed from PTR so that we would have an understanding of what's going on. But we are going to have patch notes coming on the 2nd. They did say we're going to have patch notes coming on the 2nd after the developer live stream. So look forward to that. And we'll be going over the developer update live stream, and we'll also cover the patch notes after the developer live stream, which is it just says May the 2nd. It doesn't say the exact time. I'm assuming that it'll be on this website, same as everything else. So you just come over here. It'll probably be listed in the normal patch notes here, which we don't really have anything right now. Because obviously we're still waiting on like 1.36 or whatever for the newest version. If you guys want a link to this, by the way, so you can quote any of this stuff, here, let me give you some of this. Are we going to be able to use level 1 aspects at the beginning of the season? I'm not quite sure what you mean. You're talking about like the Codex of Power? The Codex of Power isn't going anywhere, from what I understand. So basically, we're still going to have access to like the Codex entries that you can get from like dungeons and stuff, but they are going to be at their minimum power level. So like as you play and you destroy items, you're going to get far better versions than the Codex entries that are offered from the dungeons. But they didn't say anything about taking away the Codex entries from the dungeons, so you're still going to have access to those. Yeah, they reduced the loot drops in the dungeons, and the thing is that I don't think they properly balanced it. I think that was the real issue. Is the veiled crystal requirements, I think, were still the veiled crystal requirements from before, when the loot was dropping in like insane proportions, and also when they were giving us more veiled crystals. So I think there was something going on, Lexi, with like the balance of loot that you were bringing back compared to what you were spending, and it was very obvious that it was a net negative for anybody involved. So even if you brought back everything that you were getting, even if you took the time to destroy all the items instead of selling them. And, like you went out to farm veiled crystals in dungeons, it just seemed like it was always a net negative because of the cost of everything. I mean, it was like 75 to like imbue an item. It was like another 25 for like tempering, and it was like 2 to 5 or 2 to 10 for masterworking, depending on what tier you were on. And then the masterworking could fail multiple times, which meant you were spending multiple amounts of veiled crystals there. And so before you knew it, like just to, let's say you were just trying to create an item. So you would imbue the item, that was 75. And then it took like 25 to temper it, and it was like 25, 25, 25. It was like you would literally sit there and just temper an item, say 5 or 6 times. But let's just say 5 times. So we got 25, and then we got 25 again, then we got 25, then we got 25, and then you got 25. Right? So we're already at like 200 veiled crystals to do one item. Then you would take that item over to the master worker, and you would start masterworking it. And while it might not have seemed like a lot, you would end up masterworking an item like out of the 12 times that you would masterwork the item, you would fail like at least it seemed like 70% of the time. And so your 12 times would very rapidly turn into, say, like anywhere between 20 to 30 attempts to masterwork your item. And it was basically a matter of like anywhere between, what was it, like 2 to 10. So if we take 2 plus 10, and we say 12 an average of, divide that by 2, so we got an average of like 6 veiled crystals per attempt, right? And then you multiply that out by like 30 attempts, you've got like another 180 plus the 200 original, and you were looking at like 380 veiled crystals just to like make one item to its end game purpose. And let me tell you, even with the veiled crystals that they gave us at the beginning, which I basically sat there and just farmed the veiled crystals from the spawn. You got like 1,000 veiled crystals every time you made a character, and I made like 10 or 20 characters, so I had like 20,000 veiled crystals. And it didn't take very long before I had burned through all of the veiled crystals, and I was literally just chugging on E. Uh, so hopefully they've adjusted it, because if they didn't, it's going to be really difficult for anyone to upgrade anything. Because you got to think that in the PTR, we started with like 20,000 free veiled crystals. And when you start your new season, you're going to start with 0, which means you're going to be starting on an E, and you're going to be going from there. Hopefully, my advice to everybody is that you're going to want to destroy, or rather deconstruct, pretty much all the items you get for the most part, because it feels like to me that if you don't deconstruct basically everything that you get, you're going to run out of materials really fast. And even if they do adjust it, it seems like with all of the systems that you have involved, all of the failures through the tempering system, all of the failures through the masterworking system, the ability to switch aspects so easily now is also a big thing. So like you can very easily change between perfect aspects on a whim, where you couldn't do before. So like, before, if you had a perfect aspect, you would put that one perfect aspect on an item, and if you happen to have another one sitting in your stash, you might swap to something else. But like you didn't always have access to perfect aspects, at a whim like you do now. And because of the Codex of Power basically giving you aspects, perfect aspects in a like infinite way. So once you have a perfect aspect, you basically have a perfect aspect forever, right? So it led me to oftentimes change the aspects on my items more frequently than I had before. And since it costs 75 veiled crystals to change out your aspects every single time, you are now looking at a situation where you're going to be burning through thousands of veiled crystals relatively quickly while you're testing out different builds and different specs and playing around with different aspects on your items. And it does add up rather quickly. It's kind of insane. And I'm trying to think what else we can talk about here. Greater affixes. Let's talk about greater affixes for a second. So I played around with a lot of greater affixes. A lot of the times I felt like the greater affixes were garbage. and I'll kind of explain myself. So if you find an item and the item doesn't have the affix that you want on it, like say it spawns with distant damage, and you're a character that's based on close, and you have no room, use for distant damage. A lot of the times you would find an item with greater affixes, and the greater affixes would be things like distant damage, or something silly like like bonus to the main stats, and maybe you're not a character that uses the main stats. It really depends on what you need for your character. So a lot of the times you would find an item that had like a greater affix or even two or three greater affixes, and they would just be on really stupid stuff. And since you can't re-roll greater affixes, it felt like 9 times out of 10, whenever I found an item that had greater affixes, it was pretty much straight to the deconstruct bin because it wasn't a useful greater affix. Occasionally, I did come across some items that had like really good greater affix rolls, and in the correct, things, and on the correct item, and like in the correct proportions and whatnot. But it was few and far between that I ever actually found a greater affix item that was actually rolled correctly. Like, let me see if they had a picture of a couple items here. So, like this one in particular here with 82 intelligence, damage, and damage over time. Like a lot of the times I would find one, and the greater affix roll would be on the damage over time, and I would be a character that it's not damage over time. Or in this particular case, you can see they got it on the damage roll. On the damage roll is nice, but the damage roll is an additive bonus, and you might not necessarily want it on the additive bonus, and instead you might want it on your multiplying bonus. So if, like, I was using an example earlier with the druid utilizing the close damage from Thunderstruck. Well, if you're a druid that's using Thunderstruck, you're going to want it on the close damage, not a additive damage roll, because the close damage is actually going to give you a multiplier. Same thing for just about any character. Like if you're a character that uses vulnerable damage as your main effect, or if you're a character that uses berserking damage, like for the barbarian. But I think I remember they capped off the berserking bonus from that multiplier, so you might already hit your maximum with that. On top of this, the greater affix rolls can't roll on any of the tempering stuff, so the tempering stuff is added afterwards, which is interesting. So basically, you can only have up to 3 greater affix rolls on a legendary item, and 4 greater affix rolls on a unique item. Now, speaking on unique items for a second, and this is something that I hope that they address on the May the 2nd dev talk. The unique items felt really useless. Now, don't get me wrong, there were specific unique items that I would consider to be build-defining unique items, and those build-defining unique items were still valuable within the builds. But for the most part, because of how powerful the greater affixes have made the items, because of how powerful tempering can potentially make your item if it has the affixes that you specifically want, there is a kind of a dilemma going on with the unique items, where the unique items just don't really feel useful anymore because they're kind of outclassed by any of the legendary items if set up properly. So if you get like a 3 greater affix legendary item, set it up with 2 tempering, specifically with what you're looking for, and you get it set up just right, it's going to be more powerful than most of the unique items. The only unique items that I think are still going to get used after this change are things that are build defining. Like, for instance, the boulder amulet, the dolmen stone for the druid. Like, if you're doing that specific build, you can't do without that specific unique item. So you're going to use that unique item no matter what. The new firebolt build that allows the firebolt to split with the firewalls, that one's pretty cool too. And again, you're in the same situation where you're not going to take that item off. That item's always going to be something that you're going to use. Like if you're doing the Bone Storm build, you're going to use the Lidless Wall, which is what the Necromancer currently has on, because you can't really do the Bone Storm build without the Lidless Wall. But when it comes to other unique items like Tybalt's Will, or just in general, a lot of the other uniques that don't have a specific purpose in the specific build, you're probably not going to want to use Tybalt's Will anymore. You're probably not going to want to use things like I'm trying to remember like all the unique item names and trying to pick out the generic ones, but there's a lot of generic uniques that just seemed like they weren't really all that amazing anymore. And it's Bob pointed it out too during the PTR. He's like, I don't really want to use any of the uniques anymore. He's like, unless the unique specifically has something to do with my build, because I'm probably not going to want to use it. Because they're just less powerful now than the previous ones. But then at the same time, he did also have a 4-rolled Talrash's iridescent loop, which was pretty darn cool. So he got a 4 greater affix Talrash's iridescent loop, and he was using that, and it was kind of insane, actually. But it was a really rare drop. I hadn't seen any unique items drop with 4 greater affix rolls, with the exception of the one that he got. I mean, the gems, I'm not really sure about the gems, like especially with the royals being at level 91. That's going to be quite some time before a lot of people are going to have access to those. I mean, they're basically end game at that point. So we're going to be using flawlesses for the most part in World Tier 4 because they start at 71, even though most people get to World Tier 4 around like, I don't know, like 65. Um, like I was talking about earlier with the topazes, the sapphires, the like giving you the main stat. I'm not sure a lot of people are actually going to use this. I feel like the main stat bonuses, while they do give some interesting increases to your damage output, or like in each individual case, like intelligence is going to give you resistances, willpower gives you like what is it? Like your regeneration and your crit and stuff like that from your spells. Your dexterity gives your actual crit, and then you get like, I'm not really sure that these are going to be all that useful. I mean, you can get a little bit of armor if you throw in strength gems, and you can get some all resistances if you throw in intelligence gems. But I think the leanings for this are going to be more toward just simply matching up the gem with your particular stat, which is going to give you more damage output. There are some particular classes that scale their damage based on their main stat with a multiplier attached to that. So it could be interesting to see how that goes. But from my experience with it, a lot of the times you needed more hit points to be able to survive the encounters. And that's something we can talk about as well. So during PTR, it felt like my hit points were way higher than normal. I didn't have access to any Uber Uniques, so I had no Doombringer, no Grandfather, no Harlequin Crest with massive amounts of health bonuses. But one thing I did notice was that my HP was ridiculously higher. I'm talking about like, I think my Druid was sitting at something like 38,000 health with basically no real equipment to increase his health. Like I wasn't actively trying to increase my maximum HP to any like crazy heights, and I was already sitting at like 38,000 HP. So it seems like HP is pretty important too, because even at 38,000, I was still getting one shot by stuff. um, with lots of damage reduction and also 38,000 HP, and I'm still getting one shot. So rubies, which give you more HP, may be just the play for this season, because you're going to need as much HP as you can get, since they took away the damage reduction from the gems to kind of counteract the massive amount of damage that's coming in from some of the higher tiered stuff. I don't really know how else to put it other than that. Speaking of like massive amounts of damage, they were talking about the bosses earlier, like the tormented bosses. So they basically added a mechanic to the tormented bosses, which is basically a stacking debuff that will get worse and worse as it stacks, and the higher it stacks, the more damage you take. And so basically at a certain point when you're fighting these tormented bosses, when your stacks reach anywhere between like 3 to 5 stacks of this debuff, the monsters will start dishing out more and more damage to you to the point where you will eventually get one shot. And basically it usually just involves doing the mechanics. So for instance, with Grigore, using Grigore as an example, his floor mechanics and the the separations in his little puzzle Basically, if you touch any of the floor mechanics, or if you touch the separations in his puzzle, you gain a stack, and the stack increases the damage that you take. One stack or two stacks isn't going to be enough to kill most people. In fact, usually if you're pretty tanky, you can take upwards of like 4 to 5 stacks before you start getting one shot. But essentially, how the tormented bosses work is they're basically forcing you to do the mechanics, and if you don't do the mechanics, you get hit by these effects that give you the stacks, and once the stacks hit your character, you start to take more damage, and eventually too many mistakes leads to your death. And that's basically all there is to it. Um, some of the bosses, like Grigore, much easier to do the mechanics on. We found Grigore to be by far the easiest to do the mechanics for, because all you really had to do was just face your back toward the wall, and just do the puzzle whenever it happened. And honestly, once you did the mechanics properly, his fight was actually ridiculously easy. It was really long because he had a lot of hit points, but you just basically had to sit there and do the mechanics properly. As for other ones like the Beast in the Ice is a little bit more random in his mechanics because he often jumps down on you while you're doing his little mechanic thing. And so a lot of the times he will force you into situations where you can't really dodge his mechanics properly. So the Beast in the Ice tended to be a little bit more difficult mechanically. Varshan is actually pretty easy mechanically once you learn his pizza cutter pattern, but it will take people a little while to learn his pizza cutter pattern properly. But if you get hit by his pizza cutter, you gain a stack every single time you're hit by his pizza cutter. And then eventually it hits the point where he's going to one-shot you with that as well. And I did find that Varshan was a little bit more difficult in groups because not everybody was particularly good at doing the pizza cutter, the little stupid pizza thing that he does. And some of his patterns are a little bit more difficult to discern. So you might have a little bit of trouble with Varshan. I did not see what Andariel was because what her like stacks were being applied through. They also changed Lilith, Uber Lilith, with these stacks. So if you go fight Uber Lilith, she doesn't one-shot you anymore, but if you get hit by her one-shot mechanics, the previous one-shot mechanics, they will apply stacks to you, and if you get hit by too many of the stacks, you will die. I played around with it during PTR, and I did manage to beat her with a summon necromancer. Had absolutely no problem killing her damage-wise, but the stacks did make it a little bit difficult to get to the end of the fight without ending up dead, because it was a little bit difficult to avoid the ghosts at the end, because each ghost was applying a stack every single time it touched you, and they were all over the place. They seemed like they were different than the previous ghost, too. Faster. I'm not really sure how to explain it. But it's definitely doable. Lilith is definitely doable now with just about anybody as long as you can do the mechanics. In fact, just about any of these Tormented level 200 bosses, it doesn't feel like they are particularly difficult. And I kind of want to stress that. It's really a DPS race combined with a mechanics game. So you basically, as long as you do the mechanics properly, you can always kill the boss. And then damage output comes into play because if it takes you forever to kill the boss, then you have to do the mechanics for longer, which potentially means you're going to eventually mess up. And since the stacks never reset, the longer the fight goes, the more likely it is that you're going to mess up. So killing her faster, or killing any of the tormented bosses faster, means that you have to do the mechanics less. And doing the mechanics less is definitely going to be a good thing, because it doesn't matter how long you fight a boss, like you're eventually going to hit a stacks that are going to kill you, like if you're fighting the boss for a really long period of time. Because they're going to catch you. Like, there's going to be little bugs that happen. The boss will jump down at the wrong time or something. Like, there's tons of things that were going on that would cause you to get the occasional one stack here or there, no matter how well you did the mechanics. So if you drag the fight out forever, it's going to be your eventual death. Now, we did notice that you were able to retry the bosses, though. So this is something that I will state. So during PTR, when you were fighting, say, I don't know, like Tormented Grigore, if you died during the fight, if everybody wiped out, you didn't lose your materials. You could go back in there and you could fight Grigore again, and you could keep trying until you eventually defeated him. Varshan was bugged at the time, and if you died during his fight, it would actually allow you to re-enter the arena, but then would completely lock up the game to the point where you had to save and exit essentially just to get back into the game outside of the arena. It wouldn't even let you leave the arena, and Varshan wasn't there. I'm assuming that that was a bug, and that you'll be able to fight Varshan repeatedly as well. But all of the bosses that we fought with the Tormented versions were capable of being fought multiple times if you failed. So you don't have to worry about failing so much as you just need to make sure that you can complete it. And I wouldn't go in there with paltry DPS either, because even with four of us with very, very good setups on our characters, DPSing constantly on Grigore, it took us quite a long time to kill him, like all together, and doing the mechanics and trying to stay alive the entire time. And it was definitely a pain in the butt damage wise. So you're going to want to go in there with some really high DPS, single target DPS characters, and that's just unfortunate because that means it's going to kind of get those AOE damage characters kind of out of the arena. Because if you already have trouble killing, a regular boss, like if your character's really good at AoE damage, like you can just kill massive groups of monsters with no problem, but you just you don't really do well against the single target bosses, you're gonna have trouble with these guys. Like this you're definitely gonna have trouble killing the Tormented Echo bosses if you already have trouble with single target. I think that's pretty much it. Off topic, but that jersey is fire. Oh yeah, I love this. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's green. This is Cell's shirt. Got the red ribbon logo here, and that's Cell right there. I got the other colors too, but this is obviously the best one because it interacts with the green screen. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. I'm looking forward to see what they got to say on May the 2nd, because I do feel like there's a lot of stuff that they need to address from PTR, and this doesn't really address any of it. I mean, if anything, it even confirms that the rare items are still going to stay with 2 affixes, which is rather unfortunate. I think a lot of people complained about this one, and I don't know why they're so dedicated to basically destroying rare items as a potential item within the game. I mean, it kind of feels like at this point, when they're deliberately trying to reduce the total number of items that you can use. Like when they said earlier that they reduced the number of items that would drop, they really meant it, because they definitely reduced the number of items that would drop, because now that rare items are basically out of the picture, it's going to be much more difficult to find anything. Because it has to be a legendary item now. And on top of that, legendary items can roll greater affixes. So even if you do find a legendary item, it might not still be better than what you have on because of the greater affix rolls. So now we're limited basically to only 2 types of items within the game, which is legendary items and unique items. It's kind of silly. I mean, especially when you consider Diablo 2 has white items which are valuable, blue items are valuable, rare items are valuable, set items are valuable, rares, uniques, like the whole 9 yards, like everything, rune words, like every item in the game basically has value. And now we're going to a system where white items in Diablo 4 are trash, blue items in Diablo 4 are trash, rare items in Diablo 4 are trash. And the only items that are really going to be worth anything are actually, I can even include this one, legendary items are trash. You might be wondering why I'm saying that. Well, because if legendary items are inferior to greater affix legendary items, then at a certain point, once you start getting those greater affixes, legendary items are basically going to be always trash. So you're going to destroy all the white items when you get them. You're going to destroy all the blue items when you get them. You're going to destroy all the rare items when you get them. And then there's going to come a point where you're going to destroy every single legendary item when you get it, because it doesn't have greater affix rolls. And that leaves only greater affix legendary items and unique items. And then the same thing applies to unique items, is that eventually you're going to get greater affix unique items. And so all the regular unique items, the ones that are not greater affixes, those are going to get destroyed too. So now we're basically limited from the currently, what is it? So you got white items, blue items, rare items, regular legendaries, regular uniques, greater affix uniques, and greater affix legendaries, right? So we have a total of 5, 6, 7 types of items within the game. Out of the current 7 types of items that are in the game, 5 of them are basically going to be garbage from this point forward. And then, of course, we can include uber uniques. So there's 8. So out of the 8 items, only 3 of them are actually going to be any use whatsoever to most people, which is rather unfortunate. Legendary items are still useful, obviously, up to a certain point, but once you start getting those greater affixes, they're not really going to have as much usefulness anymore. One thing that a lot of people had been speculating, so it'd be fun to talk about this real quick, is they had speculated that maybe rune words would be eventually coming, and that maybe that's the plan for rare items. Like, a lot of people can't fathom, I can't fathom why they would make this change, because removing rare items as valuable items doesn't seem like a very good idea. And so a lot of people have speculated that perhaps the reason why they're doing this is in preparation for some other system, like maybe they're going to be coming out with rune words, or maybe we're going to get some, like maybe rare items will have like multiple sockets on them or something, or they'll find some other way to make rare items useful. But as of right now, we have no idea if there's any kind of plans, and they're not sharing them with us, if there are. So at the moment, we're just gonna have to assume that rare items are just basically useless at the moment. So we got basically what, like 2 weeks? What is it? Today's the 30th. They said it's going to be on the 14th. So 30th to the 7th is 1 week. 7th to the 14th is 2 weeks. So yeah, we've got about 2 weeks till the launch of Season 4. So mark that on your calendar. And we're going to find out more on the 2nd, and we'll also be going over the patch notes. I don't know. Leon's here with me today. You got anything to say, Leon?
I think you covered most of it. The veiled crystals, hopefully that did get addressed. They put a note about it. That was a big one. That was very annoying for us.
Yeah, the veiled crystals was bad. It was really bad. I don't really. I think it just had to do something with the fact that they had reduced the number of items, and then the pit wasn't dropping any, and then I don't know exactly, but like the costs were really high too, which was also kind of an issue. I think it was a combination of things that was leading to a bad result.
Yeah, and they added them into the new Masterworking, I believe, or Tempering. One of the two required them.
Does Leon play Diablo 2? Yeah, he was playing. He was on. He had a spears on. We were playing it just the other day. He's leveling up, but he wants to make an infinity spears on. I don't think he has an infinity yet, though.
No affinity yet. No. I got Thunderstrikes today, though.
I mean, it kind of sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like to me like they copped out on the season journey. Like it sounds like because it sounds to me like the Iron Wolves is the season journey, and I don't think we see any special powers coming from the season journey here, unless having an Iron Wolf mercenary is the season power, but like. They literally called it Season 4 the Loot Reborn, so it almost makes me think that literally the loot changes are the season mechanic.
Yeah, as of right now, it just seems like there is no season power.
And on top of that, they said that the Iron Wolves events that are going to be in the HellTide are also going to be persistent, past the end of the season. So even the Iron Wolves aren't even a season event technically. If they're going to be persistent past the end of the season, that's not a season event. That means that's just Eternal Realm changes basically. So anything that changes Eternal Realm is not really considered a season event. And everything that they have outlined here, like everything all the way down to the Iron Wolves, all of it is essentially just Eternal Realm changes.
Which the game did need some in-game updates. So I'm happy for permanent changes. But they might be taking a break from like a seasonal theme. It's Loot Reborn takes on a new theme. That's what it is.
I think I'm gonna delete half my characters last go. Like they've honestly, with all the changes that they constantly make, like they have literally made my Eternal Realm characters like absolutely pointless. Like my season 0 characters are still wearing like 825 gear or whatever, and my season 2 characters are essentially completely outdated. And the season 3 characters with these changes, they basically would need to be completely redone. I'm thinking about just consolidating all of my like unique items or something. Just destroy everything else, and I'll just consolidate all my unique items or something, and just delete half my characters because I just don't really see a reason to keep any of my characters once this season goes live. And I think that's kind of important to talk about is that the changes that they've made are so drastic, and it would take so much time and so much investment to fix my characters on the Eternal Realm that
It's not worth it.
it's just not worth my time to do that. And the only reason I keep my Eternal Realm characters is literally for videos and testing. But if I pull up a video and I show off an item that's like from season 3 with the changes that they currently have, people are going to laugh and they're going to be like, huh, that's not what the item looks like anymore. It looks like this now, and it's like a completely different item. And so none of the stuff that I'm even holding on to on my Eternal Realm characters for the purposes of testing is really even worth holding on to anymore. Like and they even said during the PTR, they said that all the old stuff was going to be marked as legacy equipment, and that you could still keep it, but you wouldn't be able to temper it, you wouldn't be able to masterwork it, you wouldn't be able to do anything to it. It's basically just like old hat equipment that nobody wants anymore. I mean, there might be a couple like niche pieces that you might want to hold on to on Eternal Realm because they might still be technically better than some of the newer equipment, but it's going to be few and far between. You know, it's going to be like 1.08 Valor and stuff like that. Like you might have an item that's just crazy better than some of the new changed equipment just simply because it's like from an older spec. But I don't know if I can really see that either because to be honest with you, with the greater affix system that they've added, the tempering system that they added, like all of it, it's kind of insane. Like look at some of these mods that they have on the items. Like, do you see this mod right here that says 20.1 chance for Bone Spear projectiles to cast twice? I mean, you're not going to get that on any legacy equipment.
Yeah, your legacy characters are done. You have to start over. It's not worth the time to invest into them. Leveling is fast enough that you'll basically have all new characters before you could gear out those old ones.
I mean, some people were talking about the damage reduction from the older equipment. Could be worth keeping, but I mean, some of the damage reduction that was on the equipment has stayed, and some of it disappeared.
You won't be able to get the health values like you were talking about. The HP values alone that you get from the new itemization.
You can literally put HP on every single item.
Is insane. Yeah.
Like I was looking at that during the PTR. Like if you have the tempering manual, which is very important because you have to collect all the tempering manuals. But if you have the tempering manual, you can literally put HP on every single item. So you can have hit points on your helmet, armor, gloves, your pants, your boots, both of your weapons, your rings, and your amulet for what, a total of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different HP modifiers. I don't know how they're going to balance that with barbarians that literally have 4 weapons because they're going to have 2 additional HP modifiers that they can put on their equipment.
Yeah, I'm getting 100k. That's my goal, 100k HP.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just that you can have over 200,000 HP. When I was playing the higher tier like pits and stuff like that, you kind of had to have a large amount of HP because if you didn't, you were just getting one shot by everything. It honestly seems like they took away the damage reduction and then they just gave us large amounts of health bonuses to compensate so that instead of taking, you know, like if you was just ran it on a calculator, like say for instance you took like a hit that was like 100,000 damage, right? Well, if you've got like nearly like 85% damage reduction, then that's going to bring that down to like a 15k hit, which most people can absorb. But by taking away a large amount of the damage reduction, you know, like now we get that same 100,000 damage hit, but we only have like 50,000 or 50% damage reduction. So we're still going to take like a 50,000 damage hit. So you're going to need large amounts of HP to absorb these big hits because they gave us more HP but took away our damage reduction, which is effectively the same thing, by the way. Like if you have large amounts of HP, you can still absorb a hit even if you don't have the damage reduction. But some of the characters had trouble building HP. Like I noticed that when I played my druid or my barbarian, he had tons of HP. And then when I played, say, like the rogue or the sorceress, she's like just as an example, without trying to increase my hit points on the druid, I was sitting at 38,000 hit points. Without trying to enhance my hit points on the sorceress, I was only sitting at 18,000 hit points. And I don't really know why there was such a massive difference between the two because they were both pretty much using the same equipment. And I'm talking about same health on most of the gear too. So it seemed like the sorceress and some of the weaker classes just had much lower HP in general.
Yeah, I mean, your effective hit pool is based off your HP and damage reduction. It's basically based off your HP only, because damage reduction is so rare now. So it might be less depending on how much, like you said, certain classes can build.
What are you doing? What are you doing, Monster Dog?
I hope the tempering manual issues we were having was just because like the Iron Wolves weren't in, since those are rewarding a lot of manuals. They said.
I mean, some people had the manuals. Like when I would talk about not having the manuals, somebody would always pop up and be like, "I got that manual," and I'd be like, "How?" I was like, "Where'd you get it from?"
I kept getting the same ones over.
Yeah,
and over
me too.
again.
I would get the same. I think I got the same manual like 6 or 7 times. And I would go to use it, and it would say you can't use it, and then I would say, "Does anybody else want it?" And they'd be like, "No, you can't trade them. They're account bound." So I just threw them away. Why are you coming up here? No, why you're like a horse. God, you know, I was watching this. Get down, God, dang. I was watching this video, and apparently this guy rescued a buffalo. I'm not even kidding you. He rescued a buffalo, and he hand raised the buffalo, with a bottle in the house. And when the buffalo grew up, he remembered that he was allowed in the house, and that he wanted to go back into the house. Except for now, he's a ridiculously large buffalo, and as a ridiculously large buffalo, he obviously does not belong in the house. Buffaloes are ginormous, and in this video, literally, he just thinks he's a member of the family. Like he's just walking around the house, and he said sometimes he would come home and the door would be wide open because the buffalo would just bust the door down, and would just be like sitting on the couch. Like I kid you not. Like imagine like a big giant buffalo like this. You just walk into your house and the buffalo is just sitting on your couch. Like 3,000 pounds of I'm sitting on the couch. What are you gonna do about it?
He's a lap buffalo.
It's my couch. I don't know. It cracked me up because it's the same thing he does. He's like 110 pounds and he still tries to sit in my lap like he's a lap dog. Could you imagine if the 3,000-pound buffalo tried to sit in your lap?
You'd be dead.
You'd be dead. You would be dead. Also, the weird thing is that if you ever threw a temper tantrum, you'd definitely be dead. Because I don't think you're surviving a 3,000-pound buffalo rampaging around. That's when you just run away.
Your walls are going to start falling apart. Maybe your house.
Just bust down the door. I mean, I think we could talk on HellTides a little bit more. HellTides were really fun. Like, yep. I think just in general, a lot of people are going to enjoy the HellTides a lot more now. The community event in the center, I think, is a really good thing. So basically, everybody can just join up in the center of the HellTide. There's like a big giant white skull on the map, and you just sit there and spawn like the queen boss or whatever.
I pretty much got everything I wanted from the Blood Tides and more.
There's also this giant worm that spawns, and he just like vomits demons on you, which I think is hilarious. Like a legit, he just pops up and he just like vomits demons directly in your face. He kind of reminds me of the worms from Tremors. which
Oh
is fun.
no.
Which is funny because we saw those like kind of like around the arena area. He's pretty big too. I don't think this picture does him justice because when he pops up, he kind of like takes up the whole screen almost half the time.
He looks small in those pictures. I don't know if they changed it or they're just outdated.
Yeah, he does look small in those pictures. They also added an event in the HellTide very similar to the So in the I don't know if you guys remember this event from the vampiric event, but there was basically a kind of like a blood ritual thing where you would go in there and you click on it, and then it had like a red circle and it just started sucking out your HP, and the longer that you stayed in the circle, the more monsters that would spawn until eventually, if you stayed in there long enough, you could complete it. They did add one of those very similar to that in this the HellTide now. So you'll find the kind of like a I don't know, like an event statue or something. When you click on it, a circle appears, and you got to make sure that you don't leave the circle because as long as you stay in the circle, more monsters spawn, and it does do damage to you as you're in the circle. Then basically the challenge for those events is you just kind of have to tank it basically because one person has to remain inside the circle at all times. You can alternate, by the way, which is kind of neat. So like one person can go in and then another person comes out, and you can heal up, and then another person goes in. But if at any time there's nobody in the circle, everything just stops. So you're rewarded essentially for staying in the circle. I mean, that's another thing that came from the vampire events. It definitely looks like they've taken a lot of changes from the vampire events that we enjoyed, and they're kind of trying to incorporate them into the HellTide in a unique way, which is good. I mean, honestly, the HellTides were kind of boring by comparison to the vampire event. So I really like this profane mind cage potion or elixir that increases the level of the
Yeah.
monsters. Like I thought that was really neat.
It's odd that it's only a seasonal thing, and it's also odd that it only goes up 10 levels.
Well,
It seems like you're going to want it to be
it's
more
not
than
even
that.
it's not even 10 levels because they also said that you will see diminishing returns on the boosted monster levels closer to the level cap. So I don't even know if it's going to work at like if you're a level 100 character, I don't know if it's going to work at level 100. Maybe it only boosts them up to like the maximum level of the zone. So maybe at like level 70 you use it, it brings them up to like level 80. At level 80 you use it, it brings them up to 90. But at level 90 you use it, it only brings them up to 95 or something. Or I don't know. And then like when you're level 100, aren't they only like level 95 when you're level 100 or something?
103, I believe they go up to.
Okay, so maybe I don't know what the cap is on it, but I guess we'll find out. God dang. Every single time, Cody, go drink some Wadums, and then you come over here and you just drip. Just drip on me. Drip on me. When you drink some Wadums, gotta drip on me. Punch. How about that? Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. And I originally thought that the pit not dropping items was kind of neat, but at the same time, like when we were running out of veiled crystals, it really made me not want to run the pit because obviously I couldn't upgrade anything.
You couldn't do
I
anything.
couldn't. Yeah, honestly, and this is something that I think we can talk about. Didn't it seem like the materials that came from the pit? So like the was it the I can't remember the names of them right off the top of my head. The neth iron, the
Yeah. Oh no.
inguls, and whatever the hell the other thing was. Didn't it seem like there was almost an infinite amount of them by comparison to everything else that we needed?
Yes,
What,
especially when you had to open 300 boxes.
but like, I mean, I had an infinite amount of all of the resources to upgrade my equipment. I just didn't have any failed crystals, and it honestly seemed like they probably should have added something that you could spend like the Neth Iron on eventually, because it doesn't seem like, um, I mean, eventually you're going to cap out all your equipment, right? Even if you make one of every character or two of every character or whatever, right? And you make all these characters and all these different builds. Eventually, you're just going to run out of things to do, and you're just going to have a massive amount of Neth Iron just sitting around because you're farming the pit with nothing to upgrade. So, I mean, it would be nice if they added something that we could spend this Neth Iron on besides just simply upgrading equipment. I don't know. Maybe maybe allow us to convert it into failed crystals.
Yeah.
Can I convert down my Neth Iron into Veiled Crystals, please? Proceeds to open another 3,000 boxes.
I am curious about what one of the viewers asked you. Are we going to spawn with, is it all of the Codex powers at level 1, or we're going to have to unlock them still to get even level 1?
I mean, I would assume that you would still have to go do the dungeons. Otherwise, that would completely remove the whole dungeon doing thing to get the
Yeah.
Codex entries in the first place. I mean, but honestly, though, it seems to me like the dungeons have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur because, I mean, as you're playing, you're going to find at least some crappy version of an aspect, which you could immediately destroy and will immediately replace whatever the minimum aspect was in the Codex. So, I mean, it won't take too long before you have the Codex completely filled with tons and tons of entries.
I agree.
I mean, at the beginning, like the very beginning of the game, if you're just trying to get your build online, I mean, the codexes are still going to be useful. Going to the dungeon and getting the codex entries, but it won't be too long in the season before nobody's going to be interested in doing any of those codex anymore. It's kind of funny because some of the codex entries don't have any levels on them, and literally the codex entry is the most powerful entry. So for those,
Yes.
you can literally just go run those specific ones, and you can get, like the bare minimist codex entry, and it's still going to be better than anything else that you would find, or equivalent at least. There was something weird in here though. Where was that at? It was in the store section. Where's it that they said?
Dungeons are needed for manual.
Yeah, right here. It says you'll earn rewards befitting Sanctuary's defenders, such as new legendary aspects. So the new legendary aspects are going to be coming from the season journey. I don't think they show any of them here, unfortunately. They do show one of the journey caches, and it does say it has a tempering manual in it. So it contains a tempering manual of consumables such as elixirs and baneful hearts. They don't show any of the other boxes. So it looks like we'll be able to get some of the tempering manuals from the season journey. Some of the tempering manuals will be coming from the Iron Wolves themselves. Some of the tempering manuals seem to be dropping in dungeons, which we did, and like nightmare dungeons. I didn't see a single tempering manual drop from the pit.
I'm wondering if we're going to have to map this out for everyone, or is it random? Like certain tempering manuals only farmable in dungeons, certain off the world boss, certain off echoes, or like where do you get these tempering manuals? Are they just everywhere and it's random, or are there specific ones?
And that's the craziest thing in my opinion, because if you don't have the tempering manuals you need, you're going to be bricking a whole bunch of items with this tempering system. Because basically you only get a certain number of tempering, like attempts before the item is essentially bricked. And so once you temper an item, it's done. But like imagine you tempered out an item that was like perfect for you, and then later on you find a manual and you realize just how stupid you were because that manual that you had has like the best in slot affix for your character. And so now you got to go find another item that's equally as good and then retemper the item with the new manual. I mean, it kind of sucks that you have to find all the manuals. And it does seem like, well, there's currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories, right? And from what I was able to determine in the tempering manuals like section, it seemed like each category had anywhere between like 6 to 8 different manuals within its category. So if we just do like a quick math and we say we've got 6 categories times 8 manuals in each category, we might be looking at like 48 different manuals. And then on top of that, it did seem like there were lesser versions of some of the manuals, which is something kind of silly. So there were like blue versions of the manual, and then occasionally you would get a better version of the manual, which would upgrade your manual. And the only reason I know this is because occasionally I would find the blue versions of the manual, right click on them, and it would say you already have a better version of this manual in your database or whatever. And so not only is there 48 like perfect versions of the manuals, but there's probably like another, I don't know, like 24 like blue or crappy versions of the manuals. So you're looking at like 72 different manuals probably like within the entire list. And that's of course not even including other classes, because there are class specific manuals as well as non-class specific manuals. So when I switch between characters, like when I went from my necromancer to my barbarian and so forth and so on, there was definitely like an issue. Like I would have access to all the basic manuals, but I wouldn't have access to any of the class specific manuals, and then I had to go through the process of like farming out all those class specific manuals, which kind of sucked. I mean, I'm not really entirely sure I like the manual system. I wish there was kind of like a place we could go to just buy the manuals, which I guess is what the Iron Wolves is about. But we don't know whether the Iron Wolves are going to have access to all of the manuals, or whether it's just going to be like specific Iron Wolf specific manuals that you can only get from them. Um, I mean, like when we were talking about like the Neth Iron and potentially having a way to spend the Neth Iron on something other than like upgrading your equipment, maybe one thing that they could do is eventually they could just have like a shop that requires like massive amounts of Neth Iron. I don't know, they could do like 500 Neth Iron per manual or something, just so that like those of us who've spent like a really long period of time grinding out pits or something like that can have an alternative way to get the manuals that we need, like when we make secondary characters or third characters or something. Especially if we're having a hard time getting a hold of a specific manual, which during the PTR it definitely seemed like there was some issues getting a hold of the manuals. Either that, or we were just in the wrong places entirely. I mean, I don't really know. Maybe we just weren't farming in the right areas. I mean, I know for a fact that I did dungeons, nightmare dungeons. I did pits. I did plenty of like
Bosses.
bosses. We did pretty much all the bosses. We did Beast in the Eyes 200 version. We did Grigore and Grigore 200 version. We did some Durials. We did one Andariel. We did several Zirs. We did I'm trying to think of the other ones, but like we were all over the place. We did HellTides, we did everything, and it just kind of felt like we just didn't have the manuals that we needed to do what we needed to do. And maybe some of the manuals, like Leon was saying earlier, maybe some of them are just locked behind specific things. Like the Iron Wolves weren't in the PTR, so maybe we just didn't have access to the Iron Wolf tempering manuals. Maybe there were specific tempering manuals that are locked behind specific things that we've got to do that they just weren't in the game. And so maybe it just gave a really bad impression that the tempering manuals were exceedingly rare because they didn't have everything in motion to cause those manuals to fall. I'm gonna be honest with you. If they hadn't given us, which is something that they did, so they gave us, what was it, like 6 manuals? Like when you clicked on that
Yes.
guy, I think if they hadn't given us those 6 manuals, we probably would have had next to no manuals to use, like at all. I think those were the only ones I pretty much had access to for like the majority of the characters I created on PTR.
What up?
What's up, Chunks? I was talking about some of these things. They're bringing back the Iron Wolves mercenaries. They're gonna do like a whole reputation system in Diablo 4. I'm not really sure to what extent the Iron Wolves mercenaries are coming back, but there's definitely going to be quests with them, like HellTide events and some other interesting things. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I got your stream up.
Did you mess around with the PTR at all, Chunks?
No, since I had the data cap, it was just a waste of me.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said
Download
you
it.
said you didn't want to download a 100 GB game and blow your data cap out.
Uh,
So when are we getting this? When are you gonna set up your GoFundMe to get your Starlink set up? Yeah, come on. We need to get Chunk some better internet. He's in the middle of nowhere. We can do it, guys. We can do it as a group. I'll donate the first $5.
I did see those refurbished ones that you were talking about.
Yeah, they got refurbished ones on there now.
Still like $460 something set it up.
Refurbished Starlink set, $399.99. That's better than $600.
Yeah, it's still a little ridiculous. So they take advantage of.
I mean, it's
people in
hardware.
areas like
They don't
me.
want to absorb the cost of the hardware.
No, it's just the area. They know that they can jack the price up on places like this because
I'm pretty
we
sure
don't really
that's
have any
worldwide.
choice.
I think that's worldwide, Chunks.
Well,
Like
you know,
that's
it
just
doesn't mean I
anywhere.
have to
That's just
like it.
anywhere you want to go.
Doesn't mean I have to like it.
It doesn't mean he has to like it. That's right. Yeah, these worms are pretty cool when they pop up and start like spewing demons in your face.
You gonna get on some D2R today?
I don't know. I gotta work tonight. I definitely like what they did with the bosses, with the mechanic, the one-shot mechanic that they added. It makes it a hell of a lot more fair, in my opinion, because you're not like immediately one shot for making one mistake. Now you can make a couple mistakes and then you're one shot.
Yeah, no, it's better for sure.
So it's way better. It adds a little bit of leeway to it, which is honestly what a lot of them needed. And I don't know. Especially the 200 bosses, like the ones that they had like Grigore and stuff when we were doing Grigore. All you had to really do was just like not get hit by the mechanics and you could just sit there and fight him forever. Forever. I don't know. It looks like it's going to be a fun season. There's definitely a whole lot of freaking changes. I do feel like somehow this Iron Wolf thing might be leading into the expansion, which is coming. Which because the Iron Wolves, of course, they centered around the whole Act 3, docks and they were defending the docks, and then eventually they come help you in Diablo 2. So I mean, there's like a whole thing there. I wonder if the Iron Wolf, the person that they have, has any story. Like they have a specific Iron Wolf that they've named, and I don't know if there's any kind of like backstory
Like a
to
captain
him.
or something.
Yeah, his name is Soed. Let me see if I could find anything. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I gotta put in some actual words in there. It might just be a name that they made up for it, or it could be something that's actually like in the lore of the game. I don't know. I'm not seeing anything. I mean, Ashira is the one that's affiliated with the Iron Wolves. And, I don't remember Soed being a name in the Iron Wolves, like, list of mercenaries that you can hire.
33 more minutes of drive.
Looking through some of this data.
I mean, that last line, I think, is 100% what you're saying when they say the Iron Wolf events will persist. Like, they are definitely trying to incorporate them into the main story. Yeah, I can't wait to get to Carest. Get to the docks again, maybe?
What kind of comment is that? Things are getting wilder than ladies' night at the Slippery Fist. The slippery fist. Dang.
I don't know if I like that.
You don't like slippery fists?
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
Oh, man.
Poor Mark.
Hey, it's
What he
ladies' night.
got
It's ladies' night at the Slippery's Fist, okay? Eh, eh. What do you want, doggo? How about this? How about that? Bite you.
There needs to be a default statement come Thursday though about the rare items.
Yeah, I don't like that direction that they're going, which is making more and more of the items more useless.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Now, you would think they would be making more of the items more useful, not more of the items less useful. Yeah, Ashira leads a company known as the Iron Wolves. You can hire some of them, but many are occupied securing the dockside. I mean, there's really nothing in here about any kind of like Iron Wolf captain or anything. I mean, there's Ashira, and Ashira seems to be in charge of the Iron Wolves. And, apparently she has a couple different introductions. One special introduction for the Amazon. Hello there, you must be an Amazon. I've heard about your people, nomadic warriors without peer. My name's Ashira, and I lead the mercenary band of mages known as the Iron Wolves. We've been hunting down demons in the jungle for months, but no matter how many of them we kill, they just keep coming. Seems this whole place has been overrun by evil. Rumor has it that you've come here to help. If that's true, then I'll let you hire some of the mercenaries, but be careful. If you piss them off, they can be worse than those monsters out in the jungle. Huh. Ashira.
What level Joe get to last night?
I don't know. My Storm Wolf is finally set up. So I finally got him set up to like, I think it was like 80 something. He's actually doing damage now, for like the first time ever. I actually have an ability to use.
There was a Terrorized Chaos and Terrorized Worldstone,
80,
like back to back.
83, that's when I got my little Storm Wolf too.
Man, I haven't got to do a Terrorized Chaos in a while. That's my favorite.
I'm gonna look at the Iron Wolves real quick. I mean, there's basically two Iron Wolves camps now. There's the Iron Wolf camp here in Act 3 in Diablo 2, and then there's the Iron Wolf camp in Diablo 4, which is over there.
Great adventure to risk coming here. My name's Ashira.
Next to
and I
that
lead the
thing.
mercenary band of
That
mages
thing next to the
known as
doohickey.
Iron Wolves.
Yeah, with the guy
Been
standing
hunting
there.
down demons in the jungle for months.
You know it. You know which one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, I've been there.
They
Okay.
just keep coming. Seems this whole place has been overrun by evil. Rumor has it that you've come here to help. If that's true, then I'll let you hire some of my mercenaries. But be careful. If you piss them off, they can be worse than those monsters out in the jungle. Now that fewer of the Iron Wolves are needed to guard the dockside, some of them have volunteered to accompany you free of charge. I'm surprised you made it back all in one piece. Most mortals who come back from hell are usually dead. Or undead, as it turns out. Arali thinks he's so funny. The other day he said, Ashira, I don't recognize you without that big gash on your face. Arali thinks he's so funny.
I don't recognize you without that big gash on your face. What the hell? You can change the gossip that somebody will tell you by leaving town and coming back. Play around with Ashira's gossip real quick and see if she mentions anything about like a captain or something.
Hey, is there any connection between the Zealots
What can I do
in
for you?
Act 3 and the Act 2 mark?
I don't think so. The Zealots are part of the Zakarum faith.
Well, they sound the same when they die.
No one comes to Karost anymore.
So
without
just like an
visa.
Act 2 mark died.
You must be seeking fame
Ugh.
and fortune.
You must be seeking fame or fortune. Your butthole's seeking fame or fortune. How about that? Your butthole's seeking a slippery fist.
That's awful. That's awful.
Hey, that's the name of the bar. Okay, it's the bar. The bar's name is Slippery Fist.
Well, you have fun going there. I will not be attending
The
that
Iron
with
Wolves
you.
and I have made a good living around here lately.
Ladies'
And
night
you,
at the
you
Slippery
let me
Fist.
know how your rooter feels whenever you get out.
Hey,
of there.
that's a line straight from Diablo 2 Resurrected, sir. Ladies' night at the Slippery Fist.
I want to attend this place.
Yeah, where is the Slippery Fist? I want to see this place. That sounds like quite a bar. And what does the sign look like on the outside? That's the question.
Hello.
How are you gonna feel after you
The
leave?
jungle can take you down fast. Try to avoid getting trapped out there.
Slippery.
I don't
Very
think so.
slippery.
Be like, why?
Well, I'm gonna be scarred for life. I wonder why they're focusing on the Iron Wolves, though. Not thematically, but you know, in popularity, I would definitely say that the Iron Wolves are probably the least popular mercenaries out of the lot.
The other day he said, Ashira, I don't recognize you without that big gash.
I mean, the Act 2 Desert Mercenaries are more popular than the Act 3 Iron Wolves. They could have gone with the Desert Mercenaries. They could have gone with the. I guess technically they can't go with the Act 1 Rogue because they have the rogues in the game, so the Rogue is out. I guess they really can't go with the Barbarian either because the Barbarian's in the game, which pretty much leaves the Act 2 Mercenary and the Act 3 Mercenary. But between those two, why would you choose the Act 3 Mercenary out of the out of the lot?
May be a bit too clever for his own good.
I don't know. She just talks about like people in town. Like it's not really. She doesn't do a lot of talking about anything interesting. Got a bunch of junk open. You know, Diablo 4 is missing this kind of stuff. Like what I'm using right now. I think this is one of the things that Diablo 4 could really use in the future that could definitely make things better for the game. Is these strange items that allow you to basically create builds and almost like cross different classes. I mean, being able to have the ability to transform into a werewolf on a barbarian, for instance, that's just something unique, right? And there's really nothing like that so far in Diablo 4 where you get like access to other classes' abilities yet.
I agree.
I mean, sometimes it's something as simple as a weapon that procs an effect. Like, for instance, I'm using Crescent Moon that gives me static field. So, like, I have a sorceress ability on a barbarian using a druid transformation technique. I'm currently using basically like 3 different classes' abilities on one different class, on one class. You know, it would be really neat if they added some items like that that allowed you to, I don't know, like just pull in some things from other abilities or other characters.
One patch at a time, Ginger. We just got them to change Azure Raft for all classes.
Azure Raft does look really neat too. That sword is going to be insane for staggering bosses. Because remember during our testing we found out that like freezing effects were far more powerful than chilling effects in terms of staggering a boss. And if you have a sword like that that's just going to stagger, or freeze constantly, it's going to stagger bosses with insane speed.
You not doing trap?
Me? Oh, I'm just playing around. I'm probably going to end the stream here in a second because this is a Diablo 4 stream, not a Diablo 2 stream. Is Trav on? Trav is. Oh yeah, Trav. I don't have Trav waypoint. What the hell?
Well, you know, we can get that for you pretty quick.
I don't know. I guess you could walk around the Iron Wolves encampment in Diablo 4 and kind of like play around with some of the stuff there. I think I might hop on and do that real quick. Let's go see what's in the Iron Wolves encampment at the moment. That way we can get an idea of what they're going to be adding.
I am overburdened.
I mean, also the Iron Wolves are highly they're spellcasters. I mean, they're basically it's basically the sorcerer from Diablo 1. So I don't know. Let me pop on Diablo 4 real quick. Let's go play around in the Iron Wolves encampment real quick and take a look and see what we can find out there. I remember there being like a quest or two in there. You had to like talk to the Iron Wolves captain. I don't know. Alright, come on, bone nukes, let's go. God, why is it so laggy? Bone nukes? Yeah, bone nukes. You haven't seen my bone nukes character? He's freaking crazy. Here, let me show you my bone nuke character real quick before I complete this journey. God, this game is laggy as all get out. Books? Not Books. No, Bone Nukes. Bone Nukes is a character that I set up specifically to be able to spam Bone Spirit. I did eventually get him, like, fully completed toward the end of the season. Well, what you're going to see is actually pretty hilarious. I can basically just spam Bone Spirit over and over and over again without any kind of interference. So let's set this up with multiple training dummies. Let's do elites. Alright, you ready for multiple doojinks here? Give me multiple. Yeah, here we go. Alright, you ready? This was what I had set up right here. The ability to basically just spam Bone Spirit as fast as I wanted to spam it. I can just hold down the button. I'm literally just holding down the button. It's actually pretty amazing damage output too. I like it.
Did you see any manuals that help improve that build? That build looks fun.
What, my Bone Nukes build? Was there like a double Bone Spirit cast or something? I didn't see. I saw Bone Spear and I saw Bone Splinters, but
Yeah, and I don't remember. I know there's one where your minions can do bone spears, but can they do that as well? I wonder.
they did Bone Splinters, Bone Spears, I think. So I don't think it was Bone Spirits. But if I'm set up for Bone Spirit, I'm set up for Bone Spear as well. Like it's kind of the same thing, ish. All right, where's the Iron Wolves encampment? It's like up here, right? Like in the dry steppes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Onyx Watchtower, Fate's Retreat, Hidden Overlook, Ruins of Kasara, Girondi, Farborough. I can't remember where it is. Sarek. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's over in Kyrgyzstan. It's near Dry Steppes, but it's in Kyrgyzstan. Look, it's a bogus. It's a bogus. So this is the Iron Wolves encampment. Oh man, the camera's all zoomed in because I'm not playing PTR, and it just feels wrong.
Yeah,
I like the zoomed out camera. A wolf's honor.
A generous offer, but this is my responsibility. I led my soldiers into those damned ruins, and 2 of them lost their lives. Alim and Tala. I must retrieve their belongings.
Well, you need not go alone.
Fine. I will accept your aid, Wanderer. Meet me outside the old ruins to the west, and steel yourself for a fight.
So interestingly enough, it looks like they have Act 2 mercenaries here. Look at these guys over here. Like they're using pole arms. They're not wielding a sword and shield like the original mercenaries. Like, are these the Act 2 desert mercenaries being combined together with the Iron Wolves? Are they basically saying that they're the same thing? Because it doesn't look like... I mean, that looks like the Act 2 mercenaries to me, not the Act 3 mercenaries. I mean, otherwise, why would you give them a pole arm? And it's not just one of them with a pole arm, it's 5 of them with a pole arm here, and one of them is dead.
maybe they joined up because they're kind of close to Luke Lane there.
I mean, there's a bunch of quests here. Guardians of the Pit. I mean, if she fights with me on this quest, we can see like how she fights, whether she uses spells or whether she melee attacks. I guess that could be interesting. Let's go join Asa on this quest, and let's see how she fights. We'll pay attention to her specifically. Is she here with me, or... I'm gonna miss the spider when it goes. I like the spider. I was really hoping they were gonna keep the spider.
Yeah.
Okay, speak with Asa by the Forgotten Ruins. Majub? Well, that's not the person I'm supposed to speak with. I already did your quest.
I need time to do that.
Is that her there? No, that's Guardians of the Pit. This way. Looks like there's a bunch of quests here in the Wolves encampment I haven't done. Cody, quit being mean to the Chinchies.
Do what you do, buddy.
He's just gonna stick his nose in there and get it bit and then cry that he got it bit. That's what he does.
Let him do what he does.
But his nose is gonna get bit. He's gonna get a bited nose.
Maybe he'll learn. His nose is gonna get bit.
Maybe he'll learn, really? Do you really think he's gonna learn? He's not gonna learn.
He's a good boy.
He is not gonna learn. Well, Asa has a one-handed axe and a dagger.
The Iron Wolves badly need equipment. Gold. Anything to sustain us. So, I led a scouting party into the old mage ruins. They've long been considered off-limits, but ruins can hold treasures. As I see you know.
Man, I wish vampire bone gloves would drop.
Elementella fell. And I gave the order to leave them.
I would like to craft some.
To survive in the desert, A pack of wolves can't allow anything to go to waste.
Some
When an iron
decent
wolf
20
dies,
eyes crushing
all
blow.
that they carried is shared among the rest.
Yeah, Chinchi's
It's
gonna
how
get
we
your
honor
snoot.
them.
They gonna get your snoot, Kubus. They gonna get it.
The dead walk inside.
They
More
got
than I
light.
dared to
That's
count
gonna
on
hurt.
my last visit. No mistakes this time. We must find Alemantala, collect our belongings, and leave. Quickly.
Wham. I threw him. Chinchi's gonna get your snoot. That's right. Chinchi's gonna get your snoot.
He said, "No,
Crunch. Alright, is she actually in here with me? I want to see how she fights. Does she cast magic? Does she attack melee? Like, what's going on with this Iron Wolf in Diablo 4? There you go. There's some undead. What are you gonna do? Okay, she's just meleeing. She's not casting any spells. She is really bad at meleeing too. She's really slow and she's doing like no damage. Kind of looks more like a barbarian. Trying to see if she actually uses any attacks. She taunted? Is that a taunt? I think she taunted. When the skull is above the head of the monster, that's a taunt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she used a taunt. Okay, let's do this quest real quick.
I need more time. I need more
Oh, there's a big baddie in here. What's up, big baddie? Do I gotta kill everything in here? Freaking Blizzard in there. Slay all enemies. I don't think anybody in the world has ever said, "Yay, slay all enemies." I'm pretty sure that's never happened.
I need more time.
The one mob missing in the den. Where is it?
At least that one tells you exactly how many monsters you have left.
Yeah.
What makes it the worst in the den, though, is that literally they give you what, like, all the rezzers are in there. So, like, even if you do kill everything, half the time there's like somebody in the back just rezzing things.
one monster left. Two monsters left.
Dang
Three
it.
monsters left.
Stop rezzing them! God, there's so many freaking monsters here. I just want to complete this quest. Die, skeleton captain.
I need more time.
Will you refresh me on the min and max damage bug?
The min and max on what?
On jewels, like the bug. I'm talking about how they cancel.
If it's in a weapon, it's not bugged. If it's in like a helmet or armor, it is bugged. Apparently, like the enhanced damage only calculates to the min or the max or something. It's really stupid. So it like messes up all your damage. So you don't want min or max jewels in your helmet or your armor.
Gotta be in the weapon.
In the weapon, it's fine, but in the armor or the helmet, it bugs out.
What about the shield?
I
Same thing.
don't know about the shield. You're
So if
asking
you
you're
have a-
asking the
if
big
you-
questions now.
If you have a jewel that has min and max damage on it.
I need more time.
I've got a 10-man. It's also got max damage and strength.
Honestly, I'm not sure about that. Oh, there we go. There's one of the corpses. Halim's belongings. A die bone mass. Infinite bone spears. Bone spirits. Infinite bone spirits. Done yet.
I'm not ready yet.
Where's the last guy at? Retrieve Tala's belongings over here. I don't actually care about completing this dungeon. Let's just do the quest. I mean, it would be kind of interesting if they combined together the Act 3 and the Act 2 mercenaries together.
Why?
Good. We're done here. I will take their belongings and carry them back to Dalgur. Come find me there when you can.
Come find me there so you can thank me properly. Okay. Cody. Why are you staring at me like that for?
He's hungry.
He probably is. Him's always hungry. Him's got a big belly. It's big. It's hard to fill a big belly.
Not dead yet.
Am I dead? Good, am I dead? He had the hiccups earlier, so I had to scare him. And he was hiccuping something fierce. So.
And he probably didn't even say thank you, did he?
Nope, didn't even say thank you. And I scared him real good. I said, "Oh, what's up, Mr. Kubus?" I said, "That's a good boy. That's a nice boy. Got the hiccups." And then I went.
And then he pooped. Right.
And then he got rid of his hiccups.
I'm healing well, thanks to the herbs Tala carried in her pack. She was a skilled healer and a cunning warrior. We offer you
Somebody
Tala's dagger
joined.
as a
Give me-
token of our
Give me
thanks.
this.
Remember her
Come on.
name
How about that?
and carry it well.
Tala's fanged blade.
My bags are full.
Fashioned into the shape of a wolf's fang, this blade excels at striking from the shadows. Almost like a rogue. What are they, rogues? There's a blacksmith here.
That cannot be salvaged.
The forge is always hot.
I mean, there's a bunch of quests here.
Mean they attack.
Other people you can talk to.
Clear that field. I'm paying you to keep them out. Not sit here and eat.
We do what we can for them. But the evil that infests that temple is not easily cured.
I mean, these guys basically haven't been hired by anybody.
I found a body
We'll give him a job.
Well, he's crazy. He's laughing about finding dead bodies in the water. This forgotten corpse serves as a reminder that even though it's a beacon of life in a harsh land, death still surrounds the oasis. Bunch of little turtles all over the place. What's up, little turtles? Hello, turtles. Dead fish. So these guys are in an oasis in the middle of the desert.
I came here looking for help and found a tree.
Uh-huh. I mean, here they are fighting, like, the Iron Wolves are doing their thing. Like, this one's got a bow, shooting a freaking target. This one's got a sword, hitting a thing. That's the only one with a sword I've seen so far. The other ones over there had pole arms.
Welcome to the safest place anywhere in the shadow of Chaldeum. Asmodan himself would step lightly in the home of the Iron Wolves.
Oh, he mentioned Asmodan. Were the Iron Wolves in Diablo 3? I don't even remember.
Pull with your shoulder, not your wrist. Wasps take us all, will you never?
I don't know.
I mean, he
I've
talked
liked
about
Diablo 3.
he talked about Chaldeum. I don't think they were in Diablo 3. There was apparently a nod to the Iron Wolves, a legendary crafting material in Diablo 3 called the Iron Wolves Doctrine. Required character level 1 to use. It was account bound, could be stacked up to 1,000 times. Was required for crafting each piece of Ashira's vestments. Ashira's vestments. Followers, kind of interesting. It's like merc based. Followers occasionally come to aid. 4 pieces. Ashira vows that no harm will befall on one who is under the sworn protection of her Iron Wolves. It doesn't look like the set has really all that, like, amazing stuff on it. The Iron Wolves have traveled far and done much in the last 20 years, from the docks of Kurast to the palaces of Chaldeum. They have upheld their duty until they were driven from the Emperor's side by the Imperial Guard. Ashira envisioned this armor as a testament to the might of the Iron Wolves. Looking at all the pieces, flavor text. These gloves represent the unspoken bond between Ashira and her mercenaries. They were in Diablo 3. Okay. Iron Wolves play a narrative in Diablo 3 in the game's second act. Iron Wolf Jerulf and Captain David and Ashira function as NPCs. During the Blood and Iron event in the Dalgur Oasis, several Iron Wolves will join the player cause to liberate their brethren. They can be seen hurling fireballs and frostbolts and piercing lightning attacks at their foes from afar, while attacking with swords and melee. So in Diablo 3, they were still using the same abilities they were using in Diablo 2. Lightning, fire, and ice, and they were attacking with swords. So it looks like they stayed true to their status in Diablo 2, in Diablo 3, and then I don't know what they're going to be in Diablo 4, but if they stay true to their similar setup in Diablo 3 and 2, apparently, we should see them fire fireballs, frostbolts, and piercing lightning, just like they did in number 3. I don't see Blood and Iron event. The goal is to rescue 5 captured Iron Wolves held by fallen ones in 5 random points across the oasis. Each is tied to a post and surrounded by fallen curs among the other monsters of the oasis. Upon freeing each Iron Wolf, they join your party and cast fireballs at enemies. When the last one is freed, all of them depart. Freeing each one requires an uninterrupted channel, but it may not be necessary to kill every enemy nearby if they are distracted by the Iron Wolves' allies. What's up, Colin? I don't know, I guess we'll find out more. I mean, we got 2 days, and we're gonna go into the dev talks, and they're gonna talk about all this stuff. So I guess we'll find out. Maybe they'll show us what the Iron Wolves are gonna be useful for. Hopefully, we can get them as like a mercenary, because I just don't see them adding Iron Wolves into the game and not giving us some kind of like mercenary-esque sort of use for them. Alright, guys and gals, I think that's pretty much it. I'll join you guys on May the 2nd for the dev chat, and I gotta go to work tonight, so I'm probably not going to stream. But I'm sure we'll pick up the Diablo 2 leveling tomorrow. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like the content, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button, and keep watching.